Did you know that there are 137 serial killers all around the globe that have their moon in Taurus? In this video, we'll see who they are, who the most prolific, most infamous, and youngest born serial killers with moon in Taurus are, where they come from, as well as the most important thing, their Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars signs. Let's dive deep into this. But before we continue, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, turn on the notification bell so you never miss out a new video. As we just said, 137 serial killers all around the world have their moon in Taurus. 12 are female and 125 are male. Out of the 12 female serial killers, 8 were born in the 19th century and 4 in the 20th century. Out of the 125 male serial killers, 8 were born in the 19th century and a staggering 117 in the 20th century. Why such a discrepancy in numbers between 19th and 20th centuries? Were people better and less violent back then? No, they weren't, if they weren't even worse. However, investigative methods weren't as advanced, so many serial killers passed under the radar and remained unnoticed. My list contained more than 1,000 serial killers all around the globe, so that our analysis remains unaffected by cultural, racial, or religious factors. Simply put, humans are humans wherever they come from, and this can especially be seen by analyzing the dark side of humanity. In the case of Taurus Moon serial killers, they come from Australia, Belgium, Canada, Chile, China, Colombia, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Indonesia, Japan, Latvia, Mexico, Netherlands, New Zealand, Poland, Romania, Russia, Slovenia, South Africa, South Korea, Spain, Thailand, Turkey, UK, and the USA. Quick and important note. Moon changes sign approximately 2.5 days, and because we don't know the exact time of birth for the majority of serial killers, there'll be those who were born on the days when Moon changed from either Aries to Taurus or Taurus to Gemini. Further analysis of their individual cases and the comparison with the ones we do know have Moon in Taurus will tell us which sign is more likely to be correct. So pay attention to the serial killers we'll be mentioning in this video and comment down below what you think the moon sign is for those who have double moon signs. Plus, I suggest that you watch Aries moon serial killers because there you can see how serial killers with their moon in either Aries or Taurus are compared to the rest of pure Aries moon killers. So don't be surprised to see the same serial killers listed in 2 videos. Which moon do you think they actually have? Aries, Taurus, or Gemini? Comment down below. For the sake of convenience and easier understanding, when listing serial killers here, we'll treat them as having moon in Taurus. In the ranking parts of the video, we'll do the same. So if you want me to do a separate video where I talk only about double moons and which Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars signs they have, please let me know in the comments. The most prolific female serial killer on this list is Belle Gunness, aka Hell's Belle, a Scorpio. She was a Norwegian-American serial killer who was born in Norway on November 11, 1859. She moved to the USA in 1881. There she worked as a domestic servant and even got a job at a butcher's shop where she had to cut up animal carcasses. She married a fellow Norwegian in 1884, a few years after she immigrated to the United States. Their home and the candy store they owned burned to the ground, and they got insurance money for both incidents. Did they deliberately burn their properties down for insurance money? Let me know what you think in the comments. Unfortunately, 2 babies in her care died from inflammation of the large intestine, which was probably the result of poisoning. Now, no one knows whose babies they were, as Gunness never appeared to be pregnant. She collected large insurance checks after each death. Her husband purchased 2 life insurance policies in his name. On the day one insurance policy would expire and the other would enter into force, he died of cerebral hemorrhage. Much of a coincidence? I don't think so. Anyhow, she collected money from both insurances and moved to LaPorte, Indiana. There, she married Peter Gunness. Soon after, his infant daughter died while she was in Belle's care. 8 months later, Peter died from a skull injury. She then started placing marriage ads in Chicago newspapers in 1905. She lured and killed at least 2 men in this way. Her crimes came to light when her farmhouse in LaPorte burned to the ground. There, police found bodies of an adult headless woman, 3 children, and at least 11 additional bodies. It was initially suspected that the woman was Belle Gunness. However, the doctor who performed the autopsy said that the woman was shorter than Belle and that she was about 50 pounds lighter than her. It is suspected that she faked her own death to start a new life somewhere else. Her actual fate remains a mystery. She's suspected of killing at least 14 people. The second most prolific female serial killer is Jane Toppan, an Aries. She was born on March 31st, 1854 in the USA. She was the daughter of Irish immigrants. Her mother died of tuberculosis when Jane, her birth name was Honora, was very young. Her father was an abusive alcoholic. A few years after his wife's death, her father put Honora and her older sister in an orphanage. Less than 2 years after, she was placed as a servant in the home of Mrs. Anna C. Toppan. Honora was never formally adopted by the Toppans, but she nevertheless took their surname and changed her name from Honora to Jane. In 1885, Jane began training to be a nurse. She was well-liked, bright, and friendly, which earned her nickname Jolly Jane. However, she would use her patients as guinea pigs by experimenting with morphine and atropine. She would even get into bed over patients as they were dying to satisfy a sexual fetish. This is quite rare because women's motive is rarely sexual. That is, when they kill alone. When they form part of a killing couple alongside their husbands or boyfriends, then those murders are usually sexually motivated. But when they kill alone, the motive is usually criminal enterprise, jealousy, or some other unspecified motive. It's rarely sexual. By the way, criminal enterprise motive refers to the primary or secondary motive being money, being through insurance money, felony murder, product tampering, or whatnot. You can watch the video where we analyze serial killers whose motive is criminal enterprise, Aries serial killers with Moon in Aries. Jane Toppan was one of those rare women whose partial motive was erotomania, even though she killed alone. She had killed many patients before she poisoned her landlord and his wife. After that, she poisoned her foster sister, Elizabeth Toppan, and then she focused her murderous attention on her new elder landlords. She killed the whole family, her landlord, his wife, his sister, and his 2 daughters. After her arrest, Jane Toppan had confessed to 31 murders. Well, then why isn't she listed as the most prolific female serial killer with Moon in Taurus? Here's the thing, a lot of serial killers lie and exaggerate their number of victims. It's like a badge of honor for them. The higher the murder toll, the more important they'll feel. That's why they'll often lie about the real number of victims. On the other hand, even if they're telling the truth, there's often no way of corroborating their claims, so we're always left with several numbers. The confirmed number of victims, the suspected number of victims, and the confessed number of victims. These numbers usually vary a lot. So what I decided to do is rank killers based on the confirmed number of victims, which is usually the lowest one, but also the most accurate one. So Jane Toppan killed at least 12 and possibly more than 31 victims. The most prolific male serial killer is Niels Hegel, a Capricorn. He was born on December 30th, 1976 in Germany. He was a nurse who was employed in Oldenburg Clinic since 1999. In 2001, doctors held a meeting, which Niels attended, where they discussed a sudden spike in resuscitations and deaths in the hospital. It was suspicious that 58% of these incidents occurred during Niels Hegel's shifts. Niels probably got scared after the meeting, so the next day he called in sick, and over the next 3 weeks while he was on sick leave, only 2 patients died. However, instead of being fired and the police called in, Hegel was transferred to the anesthesiology ward in 2001. This often happens with medical killers. They don't get detected for a very long time because they work in an environment where death is not uncommon, and on top of that, when the hospital they work in starts becoming suspicious, it often takes months and even years before the police is called in. This is often because they usually don't have enough evidence and because they don't want to admit that they have a medical serial killer among their employees. It's like, we hired him and now we have to admit that we hired a medical killer. It's not something most people are willing to admit. Plus, by publicly voicing that they have a medical killer on the loose in that institution is not safe, so it's bad for the reputation. Anyhow, in 2002, Niels received a recommendation letter where the director of nursing of the clinic he worked at said that Hegel had a circumspect, diligent, and autonomous work ethic, and that he acted prudently and in an objectively correct manner in in critical situations. He was also praised for his devotedness and cooperative conduct. This is all after suspicions were raised against him. It's definitely something to think about. So, in December 2002, Hegel was transferred to a different clinic where, lo and behold, emergencies and fatalities began spiking while he was on duty. And no, he wasn't arrested anytime soon. In 2004, he got married, and in July of the same year, his daughter was born. He was so happy and euphoric that he injected a severely ill patient with a toxic agent during the first night at a hospital after his daughter was born. He later claimed that he did it to sustain the feeling of euphoria. I don't know, but people usually buy a round or two of drinks after the birth of their child and don't kill people because they're too happy. Finally, after the incident in July 2005, police opened an investigation into Niels Hegel. We don't know how many patients Niels Hegel killed, as it will never be known, but we know that he killed at least 85 and possibly 300 patients, which makes him one of the deadliest medical killers in history, even worse than Harold Shipman, who is suspected of having killed up to 250 patients. Niels Hegel was sentenced to life imprisonment. The second most prolific male serial killer is a Cancer. It's Yang Xinghai from China, who was born on July 17, 1968. His family was very poor. He was the youngest of 4 children, and he was reportedly clever and introverted. He dropped out of school at age 17 and started traveling around China as a laborer. If you remember other serial killers who traveled a lot for their job, like Andrei Chikatilo, you'll know that it provides them with a perfect way to get undetected for a long time. In 1988 and 1991, he was sentenced for theft in various Chinese provinces. In 1996, he was sentenced to 5 years for assault. Please note that when I say assault, it's not about physical assault. If it's just physical assault or abuse without the additional stuff, I'll say it like that. Anyhow, he was released in 1999 and began his killing spree. Between 1999 and 2003, he would enter into his victims' homes and take lives of everyone who happened to be there. His victims were mainly farmers, and he would sometimes kill the entire families. He would always wear new clothes and large shoes to avoid detection. On November 3rd, 2003, he started acting suspiciously during a routine police inspection of entertainment venues. He was taken in for questioning, and it was discovered that he was wanted for murder in 4 provinces. Some media reporters were saying that Young's motive was revenge against society because his girlfriend had left him. However, this was never confirmed. Yang Xinghai never provided a motive, but he was quoted saying, "When I killed people, I had a desire. This inspired me to kill more. I don't care whether they deserve to live or not. It's none of my concern. I have no desire to be part of society. Society is not my concern." Yang Xinghai killed 67 people. He was executed by firing squad on February 14, 2004. The youngest born serial killer with moon in Taurus is also a Cancer. It's Andres Leonardo Achipith from Colombia, who was born on July 5, 1994. He's known as the fish or the little fish, pescadito, because he used to sell fish as a kid. He dropped out of school in 6th grade and worked for his father as a street vendor. His father was physically and emotionally abusive. Now, Andres began stealing from people's houses with other kids his age. He got large sums of money in this way. When he was only 16, a well-known criminal from Bogota hired him for his drug business. Achipith would kill his victims with firearms or sharp objects. He was both a serial killer and a sicario, or a hired assassin. He was arrested on June 25, 2013, when he was only 19 years old. He was diagnosed with a psychopathic personality disorder and was described as a murderer by vocation. Just imagine such a young guy, only 19 years old, who had already killed at least 12, but possibly between 30 and 35 people. The second youngest born Taurus Moon serial killer is Itzcuatl Ocampo, a Pisces. He was born on March 20th, 1988 in Mexico, but soon after his birth, his family emigrated to the United States, and because he never killed outside of the US, he's considered an American serial killer. Unlike most serial killers, he came from a good and loving family. He was friendly and approachable and was very popular with other kids his age. The 9/11 attacks left a profound impact on him, so in the following years, he started being interested in politics. He was a supporter of the Republican Party and George W. Bush's foreign policies. In his teen years, he was bullied for his height. After the school, Itzcoatl, alongside some friends, enlisted in United States Marine Corps. He was deployed to Iraq but didn't participate in combat. While he was at Camp Pendleton, he sustained a significant head trauma, which could be attributed at least partially to his later criminal behavior. He was found not to be qualified for work. He spent some time applying for jobs, including McDonald's, but without any luck. He then had to settle with a landscaping job. In July 2010, Itzcoatl was honorably discharged. He soon began showing signs of PTSD as well as deviant behavior. However, he felt that he didn't have the right to have PTSD because he didn't participate in combat. His mental state deteriorated rapidly and he started showing signs of hypochondria and clinical delirium. On October 25, 2011, he killed his friend's mother and brother by stabbing them 30 and 60 times respectively. Neighbors witnessed the murder and described the perpetrator to the police, but because Itzcoatl Ocampo and his friend had a similar appearance, his friend was arrested instead. On December 21st of the same year, Ocampo killed a 53-year-old homeless man by stabbing him to death. This horrific event was caught on CCTV. Nevertheless, a week later, Ocampo killed another homeless man. In total, he had killed at least 6 people before he was arrested. His trial was scheduled to begin on January 17, 2014. However, on November 27, 2013, Itzcoatl Ocampo ingested a cleaning detergent from which he died the following day. The most infamous serial killers with Moon in Taurus are Jane Toppan, aka Jolly Jane from the USA, Albert DeSalvo, aka the Boston Strangler from the USA, and Heriberto Seda, aka the New York Zodiac, also from the USA. Since we've already talked about Jane Toppan, we won't be mentioning her in this part. Albert DeSalvo, a Virgo, was born on September 3, 1931 in Massachusetts. He grew up with a violent father who would beat his wife regularly. As a child, DeSalvo started torturing animals. This is one of the 3 most commonly observed behaviors in violent offenders that also includes fire starting and bedwetting. His first run-in with the law was when he was arrested for battery and robbery when he was 12. He was paroled a year later and started working as a delivery boy. However, in 1946, he was convicted again, this time for stealing a car. After his second sentence, he joined the U.S. Army. He was honorably discharged. Between June 14, 1962 and January 4, 1964, 13 single women died in the Boston area. Most of them were assaulted and then strangled in their own apartments. The perpetrator was dubbed the Boston Strangler. On October 27, 1964, a stranger entered a woman's apartment, assaulted her, and said, "I'm sorry," while he was leaving. She gave a good description of the assailant, and this led the police to DeSalvo. He was initially treated only as the suspect in the assault cases, but not the murder cases. After he was charged in assaulting women, he gave detailed confessions of him as the Boston Strangler. He confessed to the murders on 2 occasions, once when he was under hypnosis, and the other time when he wasn't under hypnosis. What do you think about confessions made under hypnosis? Comment down below. Albert DeSalvo was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1967. In 1973, he was stabbed to death in the prison. There are many doubts surrounding the authenticity of his confessions. People who knew him personally didn't think him capable of committing such atrocious crimes. Also, Boston Strangler's modus operandi, age of the victims, their ethnicities, and social backgrounds were so varied that there is a theory that there were several killers operating during the same time period that were jointly given the name of the Boston Strangler. Albert DeSalvo was connected to one murder by DNA, but it remains a mystery if he had killed the rest of the victims or not. Nevertheless, he will forever be known as the Boston Strangler. Heriberto Seda, a Leo, was born on July 31st, 1967 in New York. He lived with his mother and his half-sister Gladys. On the one hand, he was deeply religious and attended church regularly, while on the other hand, he was fascinated by serial killers such as Ted Bundy and the Zodiac Killer. He was a loner and unemployed. He liked reading magazines about guns and violence, as well as books about serial killers. He dropped out of high school at 16. In November 1989, he sent a letter to the police warning them that there would be killings. The letter contained a circle divided into sections with zodiac signs. He would list the signs that would be attacked and then attack them. The first victims were a Scorpio, a Gemini, and a Taurus. He kept claiming in his letters that he was the original Zodiac Killer, that is, San Francisco's Zodiac Killer, but his handwriting proved otherwise. Seda killed in cycles of 21 days in correspondence with the placements of heavenly bodies. He was was arrested when he shot his half-sister Gladys during an argument. Police figured out that he was the infamous New York Zodiac killer when he signed his confession with 3 sevens, something that the New York Zodiac did in his letters. He was sentenced to 232 years. Now, as you know, there is something called astrological twins or Astro Twins, that is, serial killers who were born on the same day of the same year, yet who have nothing to do with one another and are usually from different countries. In the case of Taurus Moon, there are 3 sets of Astro Twins. The first set of Astro Twins by seniority consists of Elmer Wayne Hanley from the USA and Alt Mondria from Netherlands, who were born on May 9, 1956. Elmer Wayne Hanley grew up in an abusive home where his father would physically abuse his wife and his sons. While his father was an abusive alcoholic, his mother did her best to make sure that her sons received good education and stayed out of trouble. Elmer was an excellent student at school. However, after his parents' divorce, he started working menial part-time jobs and eventually, at 15, dropped out of school. While he was still in high school, he became friends with David Brooks, who was a year older than him. He soon introduced him to Dean Corll, who was much older than him. Dean Corll, often referred to as the Candyman because his family owned a candy factory, was the mastermind behind the murders. Corll lured boys and teenagers to his home with a promise of parties, drugs, and money. Corll convinced Elmer to help him lure victims, promising him money for each boy he brought to Corll. The murders came to light in August 1973 when Hanley shot and killed Corll in self-defense after an argument during one of the abductions. He then called the police and confessed, leading them to the burial sites where the bodies were discovered. In 1974, Elmer Wayne Hanley was convicted of 6 murders and sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms in prison. He has since been denied parole multiple times. Alt Mondria is a lesser-known Dutch criminal who was involved in multiple murders and acts of violence in the Netherlands. His case is not as widely recognized internationally as some other serial killers, but it remains significant within Dutch criminal history. Mondria was born in Netherlands. Not much is publicly available about his early life or what might have led him down the path of violence. This often happens with cases that didn't gain much notoriety. Mondria was convicted of committing multiple murders during the 90s. His killings were brutal and he was known for his lack of remorse. Alt Mondria and his girlfriend attacked her landlady, after which the poor woman became paralyzed. They went on a run, entered a random house, and killed the residents. The motive for these gruesome murders was money. He was sentenced to 15 years for this triple murder. In 1995, he placed a personal ad which led to a relationship with a 30-year-old woman who had a 10-year-old son. Alt moved in with them, and in 1997, he killed the poor boy. His criminal activities extended over several years before he was eventually caught and convicted. The exact number of his victims and the specific details of each crime are not as extensively documented as those of more infamous serial killers. Alt Mondria was sentenced to life imprisonment. He died in 2011 from the untreated hepatitis C. The second set of Astro Twins is composed of Volker Eckert from Germany and William Louis Rees from the USA, who were born on July 1st, 1959. Volker Eckert was born in East Germany. Little is known about his early life, but he later became a long-haul truck driver, a profession that allowed him to travel extensively across Europe. He claimed to have had violent fantasies from a young age, which eventually escalated to real acts of violence. He committed his first known murder at the age of 15. He strangled a classmate, though this crime went undetected for many years. Between 2001 and 2006, Eckert murdered at least 5 women across Europe, although he suspected of having killed many more. His known victims were mainly sex workers whom he picked up while traveling for work. Eckert would strangle his victims, often using their own clothing or makeshift ligatures. His main fetish was women's long hair, as he liked to stroke it. This started when he was a child, as he liked stroking his sister's doll's hair. He believed that no one would let him stroke their hair just like that, so he had to find other ways to do it. He would sometimes take photographs of the bodies, which he kept as trophies. After killing his victims, he would dump their bodies in various locations, including highways and remote areas. His crime took place across several European countries, including Germany, France, Spain, and the Czech Republic. His work as a truck driver made it difficult for authorities to connect the murders, as they occurred in different jurisdictions. Remember Yang Xinghai, a fellow Cancer who also killed during his travels across various Chinese provinces? Anyhow, Volker Eckert was finally apprehended in November 2006 after Spanish police linked him to the murder of a woman whose body was found near a highway. Investigators found a collection of photographs in his truck depicting many of his victims, which provided crucial evidence of his crimes. He killed at least 9, but possibly 19 women. He was afraid of the upcoming trial, so on July 2nd, 2007, Volker Eckert took his own life. William Louis Reese was born in Oklahoma, USA. He had a history of criminal behavior, including charges of kidnapping and assault before he escalated to murder. This is very common, as rarely anyone just wakes up one day and decides to kill. It's usually a progression from petty crimes to more serious crimes to murder. William Louis Reese had a criminal record dating back to the 80s with various charges. He spent time in prison but was released in 1996. Reese is known to have murdered at least 4 women between 1997 and 2000. His victims were young women, many of whom were abducted from public places such as parking lots or while walking alone. He typically abducted his victims from areas where they felt safe, such as near their homes or in public spaces. He would then assault and murder them, often leaving their bodies in remote or concealed locations. He was finally arrested in 1997 after attempting to abduct another woman. This led to his conviction and a 60-year prison sentence for kidnapping. While in prison, Reese was linked to several unsolved murders through DNA evidence and other investigative work. These cases had remained cold for years, with no leads on the perpetrator. In 2015, he confessed to multiple murders as part of a plea deal to avoid death penalty. His confession provided crucial information that led to the recovery of the remains of some of his victims. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. Finally, the third set of Astro Twins is composed of Adelaide Phyllis from Turkey and Alexei Vygovsky, aka the Station Poisoner, from Russia, who were born on June 6, 1986. Adelaide Phyllis comes from a well-educated family, and he was described as intelligent and academically successful. He studied biology at university and later pursued education in France. He was known to be introverted and socially awkward. Over time, he developed an obsession with conspiracy theories and espionage, which reportedly influenced his later behavior. Adelaide Phyllis's known criminal activities began in 2012 in France, where he was studying. He murdered 2 people, the son of a retired Turkish general and his girlfriend. Phyllis suspected that they were spying on him, a belief rooted in his paranoia and delusions. In May 2016, Phyllis murdered a teacher in Istanbul, Turkey. She had rented a room to Phyllis, who was living under a false identity. Phyllis strangled her after suspecting that she had discovered his true identity. After her murder, Turkish authorities launched a massive manhunt for Phyllis. His image was circulated widely, and he was placed on Turkey's most wanted list. Phyllis managed to elude capture for several weeks by moving between different cities, using public transportation, and avoiding electronic communication. Phyllis was finally captured on June 12, 2016. He was sentenced to life in prison without a possibility of parole. Alexei Vygovsky, also known as the Station Poisoner, is a Russian serial killer who earned his nickname due to his method of poisoning victims at train stations. His case came to public attention for a series of murders that took place around the Moscow region and other areas of Russia. Vygovsky lured victims by posing as a helpful traveler, often targeting people at train stations. He would strike up conversations with them, gaining their trust and offering them drinks or food laced with poison. His poison of choice was a chemical substance that would incapacitate or kill his victims over time, giving him chance to rob them or, in some cases, murder them right there on the spot. The victims were often vulnerable individuals, such as travelers waiting at stations or those who were alone, making them easier targets for manipulation. Vygovsky's activities eventually raised suspicion as multiple cases of poisoning near train stations were reported. Authorities began linking these cases together, leading to an investigation. He was apprehended after a pattern emerged, and forensic evidence pointed to his involvement in the poisonings. It is believed that his primary motive was financial gain, as he would rob his incapacitated victims. However, there may have been psychological elements to his crimes, as serial killers who poison often exhibit a sense of control or power over their victims. Alexei Vygovsky killed 17 people. He was sentenced to 22 years and 3 months imprisonment. Please note that because of sheer number of serial killers all around the globe, it's possible that some serial killers' dates of birth will be updated over time, especially if their cases are lesser known. So in the case you've seen a different date of birth for some serial killers on any of my lists, please bear in mind that I take into account dates of birth that are most commonly stated as correct across various websites. Luckily, this is a rare occurrence, and it won't have any significant impact on our astrological profiling study. I'll periodically update a list traits, and I'll let you know if there are any differences. Now, before we start ranking serial killers by their Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars signs, let's talk a little bit about Moon in Taurus. This moon has a way of getting what they want without ruffling anyone's feathers. There are signs who are naturally selfish, but who irritate people with their selfishness. Moon in Taurus is not one of them. They're kind and gentle and tend to appear very empathetic. Oftentimes, they do have empathy, but it's there for as long as they need it. In a sense, they have to get something from it if they're going to apply themselves fully. Nothing is ever free for them. Not friendship, not love, not anything. They're perfectly capable of having emotions and understanding the emotions of others, but in the long run, they're more preoccupied with their own needs to be truly there for someone else. When they apologize, they do it sincerely, but there's a catch. They apologize for the sake of their own inner peace and not because they think they did something wrong. On the positive note, they're very dedicated and are emotionally stable. They're not prone to frequent emotional ups and downs. They also prefer to have a few close friends than a large group of acquaintances. They cherish deep personal connections and are definitely not superficial. Now let's start off with ranking sun signs of serial killers who have Moon in Taurus. Most Taurus Moon serial killers have Sun in Cancer, 17 of them. This is a sextile, and one may ask, how is it possible for a killer to have Sun and Moon incompatible signs and still decide to kill? As we said before, serial killers have all types of planetary positions like everyone else. One planetary position or aspect won't make anyone a killer, but it may show how they'll behave in a certain situation. Out of the mentioned serial killers in this video, Volker Eckert, William Louis Rees, Yang Xing-hai, and Andres Leonardo Achipith have their Sun in Cancer. In the second place, we have 16 Aquarius and 16 Capricorn suns. This is more expected because Taurus Moon and Aquarius Sun form a square, the most difficult aspect to have. This is someone who is torn between needing a normal, peaceful life and wanting everything to be different and extraordinary. They're very intelligent but lack true empathy, as they're only focused on their own needs and well-being. No killers mentioned in this video have Sun in Aquarius. Capricorn Sun Taurus Moon native is stable and is not prone to excesses. They prefer a calm and tranquil life to a turbulent one. Niels Hugel has his Sun in Capricorn. In third place, we have 14 Virgo Sun serial killers. Virgo Sun Taurus Moon is another trine between Sun and Moon, which means that the character and the personality of the native are fully compatible. This native is calmer than an average Virgo. They're well-grounded, analytical, and detail-oriented. They're practical, but they're also resistant to change. Albert de Salvo has his Sun in Virgo. In the fourth place, there are 11 Gemini, 11 Libra, and 11 Pisces Sun serial killers. Gemini Sun native with Moon in Taurus is intelligent and emotionally grounded, that is, unless their moon is somehow afflicted by another planet. They're adaptable and sociable with a practical mind. Atalay Phillips and Alexei Vygotsky have their Sun in Gemini. Libra Sun with Moon in Taurus native is charming. They're diplomatic and steadfast. They tend to avoid head-on conflicts. No killers mentioned have this Sun. Pisces Sun with Moon in Taurus native tends to avoid reality, and because they're so uncomfortable with changes and challenges, they may tend to avoid actions when it's needed. Itzcoatl Ocampo has his Sun in Pisces. In the fifth place, there are 10 Taurus Sun serial killers. This is a conjunction, which means that the energy of Taurus is through the roof with this native. They're very rigid and resistant to new ideas. They can also be very lazy and prone to procrastination. Serial killers with their Sun in Taurus are Elmer Wayne Henley and Alt Mondria. In the sixth place, there are 9 Aries Sun serial killers. These natives are impulsive and stubborn. They're also impatient and reluctant to change. They're stubborn and aggressive, and on top of that, they tend to hold grudges. Jane Topan has Sun in Aries. In seventh place, there are 8 Sagittarius and 8 Scorpio serial killers. Sagittarius Sun natives with Moon in Taurus are optimistic and resistant to change. They have a strange mix of being fiercely independent and possessive at the same time. They're single-minded and have difficulty adapting to new situations. No killers mentioned have Sun in Sagittarius. It's surprising to have Scorpio Sun with Taurus Moon so low on the list, given that these signs form an opposition. This native is stubborn, jealous, and possessive. They tend to be resentful and hold grudges. They're also very intense and are prone to emotional extremes. Belle Gunness has her Sun in Scorpio. And finally, in the last 8th place, we have 6 Leo Sun killers. This again is very surprising because these signs form a square. We're used to seeing suns and moons of serial killers forming squares and oppositions at the top of the list, but in the case of Taurus Moon, it seems that it is not the case. Leo Sun Taurus Moon natives are stubborn and possessive with a big ego. They're They're prone to overindulgence and tend to place too much importance on wealth, possessions, and social status. Heriberto Seda has his sun in Leo. Now, remember what we said about some serial killers having double moon signs? Those are not the actual double moons, and we don't know if the killers were born on the cusp or not. It's just that there are some killers who were born on the days when moon changed from one sign to another. So if we want to be as accurate as possible, we can say if they have one or the other moon sign. So let's see how many serial killers from this list have moon in Taurus, how many have moon in either Aries or Taurus, and how many have their moon in either Taurus or Gemini. 58 serial killers have their moon in Taurus only. Out of the mentioned killers in this video, Volker Eckert, William Louis Rees, Jane Toppan, and Albert Salvo have their moon in Taurus. 47 killers were born on the days when moon changed from Aries to Taurus. Niels Hugel, Elmer Wayne Henley, Alt Mondria, Yang Xinghai, and Itzcoatl Ocampo are among those who either have their moon in Aries or Taurus. They're also mentioned in the video about Aries serial killers, so you can watch that video and see how they stand against serial killers we know have moon in Aries. 32 serial killers were born on the days when moon changed from Taurus to Gemini. Adlai Files, Alexei Vygovsky, Bel Ganes, Heriberto Seda, and Andres Leonardo Achipith have their moon in either Taurus or Gemini. They will also be mentioned in the video about Gemini moon serial killers, so you can see how they stand against them. Mercury is an essential planet because it governs many aspects of human thought, communication, and intellectual processes. Its influence is connected to how individuals think, learn, express themselves, and interact with the world around them. Mercury can only be in 3 signs: the sun sign of the native, one previous, and one subsequent sign. For example, a Capricorn sun can have Mercury only in Sagittarius, Capricorn, or Aquarius. Most moon in Taurus serial killers have their Mercury in Aquarius, 17 of them. Mercury in Aquarius can be highly inventive, open-minded, and original placement, but it also has its negative or challenging aspects. They have a detached communication style, pronounced lack of empathy, and a know-it-all attitude. They need constant mental stimulation as they get easily bored. No killers mentioned have this Mercury. Next, there are 14 Capricorn and 14 Libra Mercury killers. Mercury in Capricorn individuals tend to be logical, disciplined, and practical in their thinking and communication. They're usually too serious and have rigid thinking. They have a more pessimistic or cynical mindset. These natives are very practical and are too focused on goals and success. Niels Hugel has his Mercury in Capricorn. Mercury and Libra individuals are known for their diplomatic, balanced, and fair-minded communication. They're also indecisive and are prone to people-pleasing. They rely too much on others' opinions because they have a strong fear of disagreement. No killers mentioned have this Mercury. In third place, there are 13 serial killers with their Mercury in Sagittarius. Mercury and Sagittarius individuals are known for being open-minded, adventurous thinkers, and enthusiastic communicators. They're also blunt and often speak their minds without much filter. They're very impatient with details and have a restless mind. They lack focus and are prone to exaggerate things. Bel Ganes has her Mercury in Sagittarius. The fourth place is shared between 12 Cancer, 12 Gemini, and 12 Pisces Mercuries. Mercury and Cancer individuals are known for their intuitive, emotionally sensitive, and empathetic communication style. They tend to have emotionally charged responses and generally struggle with criticism. They often experience fluctuating emotions, and how they communicate may depend on how they're feeling at that moment. Atalay Phyllis, Alexei Vygovsky, Yang Xinghai, and Heriberto Seda have their Mercury in Cancer. Mercury in Gemini is known for quick thinking, adaptability, and curiosity. However, they lack focus and can be distracted easily. They enjoy light, fast-paced conversations, but this can lead to superficial understanding of topics. They have a restless mind and they can frequently change interests and ideas. Elmer Wayne Henley, Alt Mondria, and Andres Leonardo Achipith have their Mercury in Gemini. Mercury in Pisces individuals are known for their imaginative, intuitive, and empathetic communication style. However, they tend to communicate in an indirect and abstract way and may struggle to articulate their ideas. They have unrealistic expectations and may retreat into fantasy to avoid dealing with difficult issues. Jane Toppan and Itzcoatl Ocampo have their Mercury in Pisces. In fifth place, there are 11 Leo Mercuries. Mercury and Leo individuals are often charismatic, expressive, and confident communicators. They have a tendency to dominate and are overly confident in their opinions. They also have a strong desire for recognition, and when their ideas or communication are criticized, they may take it personally and become defensive. Volker Eckert and William Louis Rees have their Mercury in Leo. In 6th place, there are 10 Virgo Mercuries. Mercury in Virgo individuals are known for their analytical, detail-oriented, and precise communication style. However, they're also nitpicking and have high standards and a desire for accuracy. These natives tend to overthink and analyze every situation in great detail. They also focus on potential problems or imperfections, which makes them prone to worrying excessively. They're judgmental and hard on others. Albert DeSalvo has his Mercury in Virgo. In the 7th place, there are 8 Taurus Mercuries. Mercury in Taurus individuals are known for their steady, practical, and grounded communication style. They're also stubborn and inflexible, and they're unwilling to adapt. They prefer to take time making decisions, as it's difficult for them to think on their feet. No killers mentioned have this Mercury. The last 8th place is shared between 7 Aries and 7 Scorpio Mercuries. Mercury in Aries individuals are known for their quick thinking, direct communication, and enthusiasm. They tend to speak without thinking and have a pronounced lack of tact. They prefer fast-paced communication and become easily frustrated with people who don't think or respond as quickly as they do. They're prone to conflict and may provoke confrontations or escalate disagreements due to their competitive nature and desire to be right. No killers mentioned have this Mercury. Mercury in Scorpio individuals are known for their intense, deep, and perceptive communication style. They're overly secretive and distrustful. They have a tendency to obsess over specific thoughts or ideas, sometimes to the point of fixation. They may struggle to move on from certain issues or ideas, particularly if they feel emotionally invested. These natives also have a harsh or intimidating communication style. No killers mentioned have this Mercury. Venus is a key planet that represents love, beauty, pleasure, and relationships. Its influence shapes how we connect with others, what we find attractive, and how we express affection. Like Mercury, it is a fast-moving planet, so it can be in only 5 signs: the sun sign of the native, 2 previous, and 2 subsequent signs. For example, an Aries sign can have Venus in Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, or Gemini. Most Taurus Moon serial killers have Venus in Capricorn, 18 of them. Capricorn Venus tends to express love and affection in practical, reserved ways. They're emotionally reserved and overly cautious in love. They also have materialistic tendencies and a strong fear of rejection. No killers mentioned in this video have Venus in Capricorn. In the 2nd place, there are 17 Aquarius Venuses. These natives are emotionally detached and have an unconventional approach to love. Aquarius Venus values personal freedom and autonomy, which can lead to difficulties in committing fully to a relationship. They dislike feeling restricted or controlled and may resist traditional relationship roles or defy expectations, causing friction with partners who crave stability or routine. Niels Hogel has his Venus in Aquarius. In 3rd place, there are 14 Cancer Venuses. They're overly emotional and clingy. Like Venus in Capricorn, they have strong fear of rejection and are overly protective of their loved ones. Venus in Cancer can have trouble moving from past relationships or emotional wounds. They may also hold on to memories or grudges, and it's difficult for them to forget past hurts. Adelaide Phillips, Alexei Vygotsky, Elmer Wayne Hanley, and Alt Mondria have their Venus in Cancer. In 4th place, we have 13 Leo Venuses. These natives need a lot of attention. They can be highly dramatic, especially when they feel unappreciated or slighted. They're usually stubborn and unwilling to admit that they're wrong. They can also be more focused on how their relationship appears to others rather than the emotional depth within it. Volker Eckert, William Louis Rees, Yang Xinghai, and Andres Leonardo Agipith have their Venus in Leo. In 5th place, there are 12 Gemini Venuses. Venus in Gemini individuals can be indecisive or inconsistent in their affections. They tend to be more focused on intellectual stimulation and fun rather than emotional depth. They have a strong fear of commitment and may intellectualize their feelings rather than experience or express them emotionally. No killers mentioned have this Venus. The 6th place is shared between 11 Virgo and 11 Scorpio Venuses. Venus in Virgo tends to be highly analytical and may focus on imperfections in themselves, their partner, or the relationship. They're also reserved in showing affection. They're prone to overthinking and worrying about every detail of the relationship. Heriberto Seda and Albert DeSalvo have their Venus in Virgo. Venus in Scorpio has a strong desire for loyalty and emotional depth, which can lead to possessiveness and jealousy. They may try to dominate or manipulate their partner emotionally, wanting to be the one who defines the course of the relationship, which can create power struggles. They may become fixated on their partner or the relationship, leading to obsessive thoughts and behaviors. Belle Gunness has her Venus in Scorpio. In the 7th place, there are 10 Aries Venuses. Venus in Aries tends to jump headfirst into relationships without thinking things through. They also often get bored in relationships and want instant gratification in love. This placement can be quite focused on their own needs and desires in a relationship. These natives may pick fights or create drama simply for the excitement, which can cause unnecessary tension. No killers mentioned have their Venus in Aries. The 8th place is shared between 9 Libra and 9 Taurus Venuses. Venus in Libra often prioritizes keeping the peace and making others happy, sometimes to their own detriment. They can struggle with making decisions, especially in relationships. These natives place too much emphasis on appearances or external qualities, overlooking deeper emotional connections or substance. No killers mentioned have this Venus. Venus in Taurus individuals can be extremely stubborn in relationships. Once they've made up their mind about something, they may resist change or compromise, leading to conflict when flexibility is needed. They're possessive and overly attached to their partner. They value routine and stability, which can make them resistant to change or growth in a relationship. Itzcoatl has his Venus in Taurus. Next to last, there are 7 Sagittarius Venuses. Venus in Sagittarius craves freedom and adventure, often struggling with the idea of being tied down in a relationship. They may resist deep emotional bonds or long-term commitments, fearing that they will lose their independence. They can quickly become bored or restless in relationships that don't offer enough excitement or adventure. These natives may make grand promises in the heat of the moment, but find it hard to keep them when the initial excitement fades. No killers mentioned have this Venus. Finally, there are 6 Pisces Venuses. Venus in Pisces tends to idealize love and romantic partners, often seeing them through rose-colored glasses. They may be more in love with the idea of love than the actual person, making it difficult for them to stay grounded in a relationship. Their emotions are fluid and changeable, which can make them inconsistent in relationships. They may feel deeply connected one moment and emotionally distant the next, leaving their partner confused about where they stand. Jane Toppan has her Venus in Pisces. Mars plays a significant role in astrology, symbolizing action, energy, drive, and ambition. It governs how we assert ourselves, pursue goals, express anger, and handle challenges. Mars represents a raw energy and drive that motivates us to take action. It influences how we pursue our desires, whether in work, relationships, or personal goals. The placement of Mars in your natal chart shows how you direct your energy and what drives you to act. It is also associated with physical desire and sexuality. It governs the way you express your sexual energy and how you pursue romantic or intimate connections. This is especially important for our astrological profiling because most serial killers are driven by their sexual desires. Most Taurus Moon serial killers have their Mars in Virgo, 16 of them. Mars in Virgo can become obsessed with details, leading to perfectionism. They can be overly critical, pointing out flaws in others' work or behavior, sometimes to the point of nitpicking. These natives tend to overanalyze situations before taking action. They can also be overly focused on practicality and routines, leaving little room for spontaneity or creativity. They may repress their frustration, allowing it to build up over time. This can lead to passive-aggressive behavior or sudden outbursts when their emotions eventually spill over. No killers mentioned have their Mars in Virgo. In the 2nd place, we have 15 Sagittarius Mars killers. Mars in Sagittarius is prone to acting on impulse, often jumping into situations without fully thinking through the consequences. They can be impatient and easily bored, always seeking excitement. These natives tend to be overly optimistic and confident in their abilities. They may take on challenges without proper preparation, believing that things will work out simply because they're passionate and driven. This can lead to reckless behavior or biting off more than they can chew. Niels Hogel has his Mars in Sagittarius. 3rd place is shared between 13 Cancer, 13 Scorpio, and 13 Aries Mars killers. Mars in Cancer can be highly sensitive, easily hurt by criticism or perceived slights. Their emotional reactions can be intense and disproportionate to the situation, leading to mood swings or emotional outbursts. Instead of confronting problems directly, these natives may resort to passive-aggressive actions, such as withdrawing emotionally or using guilt to manipulate others. Their attachment to the past can prevent them from moving forward or embracing change. Yang Xinghai has his Mars in Cancer. Mars in Scorpio individuals can be overwhelming in their intensity intensity. They throw themselves fully into whatever they do, which can sometimes make them come across as too forceful or domineering. Their passion can become overpowering, especially in relationships. These natives are known for holding grudges. If they feel wronged, they may seek revenge, often in calculated and subtle ways. Their desire for retribution can consume them, leading to destructive actions or behaviors. Heriberto Seda has his Mars in Scorpio. Mars in Aries tends to act on instinct rather than careful planning. Their enthusiasm and impatience can lead to impulsive decisions or actions without considering long-term consequences, which may result in mistakes or regrets. They can be quick to jump into arguments or conflicts without fully understanding the situation, driven by their competitive nature or desire to assert themselves. This impulsiveness can create unnecessary tensions or misunderstandings. These natives have a short fuse, becoming easily irritated or frustrated when things don't go their way. No killers mentioned have their Mars in Aries. In fourth place, we have 12 Libra Mars killers. Mars Libra individuals often struggle with indecision. They can weigh options endlessly, trying to find the most balanced solution, which can lead to delays in taking action. Their fear of making the wrong choice can paralyze them in situations that require quick or decisive action. They express frustration in subtle or indirect ways rather than being upfront. They may use sarcasm, give the silent treatment, or engage in passive-aggressive behavior instead of directly addressing their feelings. Bel Gunness and Alberto Salvo have their Mars in Libra. In fifth place, there are 11 Leo Mars killers. Mars in Leo can come across as overly self-assured and arrogant. Their natural confidence can sometimes turn into an inflated ego, making them believe that they're always right or deserving of attention and admiration. They can be extremely stubborn, especially if their pride is on the line. They crave leadership and may struggle when they're not in control. Their strong sense of self can make it difficult for them to apologize, especially if they feel that doing so would diminish their authority or reputation. Volker Eckert, William Louis Rees, and Jane Topan have their Mars in Leo. In sixth place, there are 10 Taurus Mars killers. Mars in Taurus individuals can be extremely stubborn, clinging to their routines and resisting change. They may find it difficult to adapt to new situations or ideas, preferring to stick with what is familiar and comfortable. Once they've made up their mind, they can be inflexible, unwilling to reconsider their position or listen to alternative viewpoints. They may struggle with procrastination, particularly when tasks seem overwhelming or lack immediate reward. These natives can be possessive, particularly when it comes to their resources or relationships. No killers mentioned have their Mars in Taurus. The seventh place is shared between 9 Aquarius, 9 Gemini, and 9 Pisces Mars killers. Mars in Aquarius can be perceived as emotionally detached or aloof. They may approach situations with a rational, analytical mindset rather than a personal or emotional one, which can make them seem cold or indifferent. Their tendency to prioritize ideas and concepts over personal relationships can lead to difficulties in forming deep, emotional connections with others. They're unpredictable and erratic. They often have unrealistic goals and struggle with practicality. Ellen Wayne Hanley and Alt Mondria have their Mars in Aquarius. Mars in Gemini can be easily bored and may struggle with commitment or focus. Their restless nature leads them to constantly seek new experiences, which can result in a lack of follow-through on projects or goals. They have difficulty making decisions. Their eagerness to engage in various activities can lead them to overextend themselves, taking on too much at once and spreading their energy thin. They're also impulsive and erratic, much like Aquarius Mars. Andres Leonardo Achipith has his Mars in Gemini. Mars in Pisces can struggle with making firm decisions or taking decisive action. Their tendency to be easily influenced by emotions or external factors can lead to hesitation and a lack of clear direction. They may find it challenging to prioritize tasks or manage their time effectively, leading to disorganization and inefficiency. No killers mentioned have this Mars. Finally, there are 7 Taurus Moon serial killers who have their Mars in Capricorn. Mars in Capricorn can be very rigid and resistant to change. They may have a strict approach to goals and methods, which can make it difficult for them to adapt when circumstances shift or when flexibility is needed. Their high standards and drive for perfection can lead to an inflexible mindset, where deviations from their ideal plan are unacceptable. These natives tend to develop a cynical or pessimistic view of situations, especially if they encounter setbacks or failures. Adelaide Phillips, Alexei Vygotsky, and Itzcoatl Ocampo have their Mars in Capricorn. The sun represents a person's character and desires, while the moon reflects their personality and emotional needs. Essentially, personality and emotional needs are fundamental to who you are, whereas character and desires evolve over time. This is why, from birth until around age 6, we're often seen as embodying our moon sign, the most instinctual part of ourselves. As we begin school and grow older, our sun sign, which represents our character, starts to become more prominent. Although our instinctual self has always been present, it is during these early years that it is most dominant. Many people who had a typical, non-traumatic childhood often feel that they were most authentically themselves during their early years. As we grow up, we might spend much of our lives trying to reconnect with that core self. While it remains a part of us, we also develop other aspects of ourselves. The goal is to integrate these parts harmoniously rather than struggling with internal conflicts. Stay tuned for more astrological profiling videos.